Bethesda used to be one of the most revered game companies for RPGs out there. However, the crown has fallen and their kingdom is in turmoil. The infamous Fallout 76 has plagued Bethesda's reputation ever since its release. In addition to some other shady stuff he has done, this has caused many people to lose faith in Todd Howard and the future of Bethesda games. I have some faith that Todd Howard can turn Bethesda around and rebuild the Bethesda empire. Of course, some is a key word here. Perhaps I'm being foolish and too hopeful to put my faith in him, but the way I see it, Bethesda's next game, Starfield, will be the test to see if he learned from his mistakes. If Starfield is good, then maybe we can finally rejoice to Bethesda. However, there is another. The game I speak of is Avowed, and more importantly, this company I speak of is Obsidian. Obsidian has been making great RPGs since they started, and their new game is looking very tempting. Now the point of this isn't just Bethesda, the point of this is to ponder the possibilities of who will take the next-gen RPG title and which is better as of now. Will Starfield prevail, or will it fall and Obsidian take the spotlight from Bethesda? Now before I continue, I just want to say that Bethesda and Obsidian aren't vicious competitors at each other's throats. They are both owned by the same company and their games probably won't come out even at the same time or even close. But I am over-dramatizing things for fun. Really, it's just comparing these two companies because they have similar games coming out. Now this is how it's going to work. I'll be recapping the histories of both companies, doing a deep dive into both companies' upcoming games, where I finally deliver my verdict on which I believe will come out on top. Bethesda and Obsidian had very different starts. Bethesda started very small and slowly built up to a very large scale over the years. Obsidian came in hard and fast. KOTOR 2 was their first game, and Fallout New Vegas not too long after. They really showed what they can do early on. Bethesda started off as a small company making sports games in the 80s and 90s, and even developed a Terminator game. They never had much recognition in the 90s until they started making a small series you've probably never heard of called The Elder Scrolls. It was inspired by pen and paper role-playing games in Ultima Underworld. This is the first important milestone in the Bethesda timeline. Bethesda continued the Elder Scrolls series, where it would start to find a lot of success. From Morrowind to Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls games are getting more and more popular. Fallout 4 is where things started to get questionable in my opinion, with the addition of the voice protagonist. Now, I haven't played Fallout 4 very much, and I'm not calling the game bad, I just think they had some questionable decisions in that game, like the voice protagonist or the set backstory. And the voice protagonist wasn't in Fallout 76, and that did horribly. This is the point in which Bethesda fell back a bit, along with some other shady practices they did, like monetizing mods and re-releasing Skyrim 1,000,001 times. They even updated Skyrim recently and broke mods on PC again. Things weren't looking so good, with the two most popular franchises either tarnished or light years away. Many turned their backs on Bethesda. Now, I'm in the camp that hasn't given up on old Todd yet, because Fallout 76 was passed from Bethesda Maryland, the group responsible for the highest rated Bethesda games, their A-team so to speak, to Bethesda Austin. However, this does not absolve responsibility from Todd Howard because, he was the game director and executive producer. But it's important to note that Bethesda Maryland isn't the only one responsible for making that game. Now, moving on to Obsidian. Obsidian is a game company I've only recently come to respect. I always heard great things about them, but it wasn't until I found out that they made KOTOR 2 that I really opened my eyes to them. What's even crazier is that KOTOR 2 was Obsidian's first game. That's an incredibly high bar to set for your first game as a company. After KOTOR 2, Obsidian made the highest rated and most beloved Fallout game of all, New Vegas. This is where Obsidian really started to compete with other big companies. Obsidian started a new IP with Pillars of Eternity, which is important for later. And of course, they made the Outer Worlds as well. Obsidian's KOTOR Fallout hybrid. And while I still suck at the combat in this game, everything else is great, and the sequel has the best reveal trail I've ever seen. Bethesda and Obsidian have very similar games ahead. They each have a space sci-fi RPG and a medieval fantasy. Granted, Bethesda is a little slower when it comes to the medieval fantasy. We're lucky if we get Elder Scrolls 6 before the sun explodes. Now to start with Bethesda, because it actually has a release date for the next game, this means that I have more to say about Starfield because I have a lot more news coming out from it. Now if we're going to do a deep dive on Starfield, we gotta catch up on all the nitty gritty of the leaks and updates. So starting with Into the Starfield video series, Bethesda has been releasing since last November. As of now, there are 3 episodes that have been released every few months. Episode 1 doesn't really say much that we don't already know. They seem to be pushing the idea of go where you want and do what you want. Now, there was one line Todd Howard said that actually gave a slight detail of a game.
I like to say that Starfield has 2 step-out moments.
Episode 2 reveals much more details. They reveal a pirate, industrial, and western faction with the emphasis of choosing to be the good guys or the bad guys. They go on to tease an advanced Oblivion persuasion system. Okay, it's me from the future here. Todd Howard revealed this persuasion system as I was editing it, so that's fun. But the most interesting to me was that they said Starfield will do things that hardcore RPGs do in a new way. Again, these are relatively vague promises, but this really gets me interested in the game. Bethesda has been slowly dumbing down their games to appeal to a wider audience for a while now, but with the recent popularity of Elden Ring, it's possible that we could be getting something a little more hardcore. Now, I'm not saying they have to go too crazy, but I would love to see a game series like Elder Scrolls return to some of the more fun RPG features that have been since lost. Now, moving on, there are also the developer commentary videos, which just explain a little bit more about the factions we already covered. Now, next up is the actual official gameplay reveal. I'm not going to do a full breakdown, just all the major important parts. It seems that the beginning of the game starts on the moon Crete, which gives me a Solus vibes from Battlefront 2014. You can harvest resources in Starfield like No Man's Sky. Pirates inhabit the island, and it shows combat. Combat looks a little meh, to be honest, but that's not really the main reason why people are playing this game. Next up, Bethesda's biggest city they've ever made is revealed, New Atlantis. It actually looks really cool. And then the reveal goes on to show some base building and ship building. Now, the idea of building and flying your own ship, I think is really cool. It'll definitely set Starfield apart from other space RPGs. Oh, also, there's over 1,000 planets, which is a little concerning that they might be focusing more on procedural than handmade, but they did say there's plenty of that too, so we'll see. It's time we talk about Elder Scrolls 6. So first off, we have the reveal trailer. Bethesda seriously revealed this way too early. They revealed Starfield the same day, and we all know that's coming way before. So it makes sense to announce Starfield first, as not to mislead people into believing both games will be revealed anytime soon. Anyway, next up we have the New Year tweet from the official Elder Scrolls Twitter. Many speculations say that each light thingy, or whatever those are, some kind of magical candle, corresponds to one game location. I guess one is Skyrim and one is Hammerfall, and that means the next one is going to be in Hammerfall. I don't really understand this one, because why is this one there and the other one is just on wood, not anything specific? I guess some people think it's to tease the arrival of the Adamorians, but I think that's a big stretch. And I don't think even Bethesda puts that much thought into their tweets. Okay, the last bit of speculation to cover. The High Rock shape in the Starfield teaser. A rough engraving of Hammerfall and High Rock were spotted in the Starfield teaser, which is more evidence to suggest that it could be High Rock or Hammerfall. Some people are saying that it'll be part of both, like in Daggerfall, but I don't know why they would return to a location when we have other provinces not even seen in the main game. With the exception of Arena, of course. Well, that's enough rambling about Bethesda. Let's move on to Obsidian. Now, Obsidian games are a little more in the future, so we don't have as much to go through. But to start with the Outer Worlds 2, all we really know is that it'll take place in a new star system, but I quote, the same Outer Worlds. This seems to indicate that the game will mostly be the same, but with a whole game's worth of new content. Now, I think there is definitely room to add more gameplay mechanics in the sequel, but I wouldn't expect too much of a change from the original. As far as the release date goes, I'm not sure if it's coming for another few years. They said it started in pre-production 3 years ago. Now, to move on to Avowed. Now, Avowed is a first-person RPG that takes place in the Pillars of Eternity world. Many people have called this the Skyrim killer, which I think is a stupid thing to say since Skyrim came out over 10 years ago now. It's not out here competing with next-gen games. Elder Scrolls 6 and Avowed are actual contenders because they're releasing in the same generation. Now, according to Games Radar, Avowed will most likely have third and first-person combat, as well as branching dialogue and day and night cycles. Also, primitive types of guns, because those were in Pillars of Eternity. There isn't too much else other than rumors stating it will be much larger than Skyrim. I hope they actually fill their maps with a high density of content. Well, I think that Obsidian is definitely better as of right now. However, I still hold hope that Bethesda will redeem themselves in the future. Obsidian is smooth sailing from here, and they overall win the competition. They both have great past and upcoming games, but at the end of the day, Obsidian have had a great rise with no storm in sight. So on paper, the winner is Obsidian. With all that being said, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you later.